imagine a world where Russia, long regarded as one of the most powerful military forces on the planet, suddenly finds itself stripped of that status. For decades, Russia has wielded its military strength not only as a tool for defense, but as a key element of its global influence. From the days of the Soviet Union to its current place on the world stage, Russia's military might has been central to its identity, both domestically and internationally. But what if that all changed? What if, due to internal strife, economic collapse, or a significant geopolitical shift, Russia lost its military superpower status? How would the world respond? And more importantly, how would Russia cope with such a seismic shift in its national identity? In this video, we'll explore this hypothetical scenario. We'll dive into Russia's military history, examine the potential reasons for its decline, and uncover the internal power struggles that could follow. We'll also consider the global consequences and ask, how might Russia and the rest of the world adapt to this new reality? Buckle up, because this journey into alternate history will raise more questions than answers, sparking curiosity about the future of global power dynamics. To understand the weight of this hypothetical scenario, we first need to look back at Russia's military history. From the days of the Soviet Union, military power has been deeply embedded in Russia's national identity. After World War II, the Soviet Union emerged as one of the world's two superpowers, largely due to its vast military arsenal. The arms race with the United States during the Cold War pushed the Soviet military to the forefront, with nuclear weapons and advanced military technology becoming symbols of its strength. Even after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia maintained a strong military presence, often using its power to assert influence in global affairs, from the annexation of Crimea to its involvement in the Syrian civil war. But beyond military operations, Russia's leadership has historically relied on its military might to maintain internal control and secure its position on the world stage. The Russian government, particularly under leaders like Vladimir Putin, has invested heavily in military advancements to ensure the country remains a feared and respected power. This focus on military dominance has shaped both Russia's foreign policy and its citizens' perception of their country. Losing this status would therefore be more than just a geopolitical shift. It would strike at the very core of Russia's identity. Now, let's explore how Russia could potentially lose its military superpower status. One possibility is economic collapse. Russia's economy, heavily dependent on oil and gas exports, has always been vulnerable to fluctuations in global energy markets. If global demand for these resources declined significantly, or if Russia faced sanctions from the international community, it could struggle to sustain its military investments. Without the financial means to maintain its vast military infrastructure, Russia's ability to project power globally would diminish. Another potential scenario involves internal political instability. A weakened government could lead to divisions within Russia's ruling elite or a power struggle between military leaders and political figures. Corruption, infighting, and mismanagement could cripple the country's military operations. Additionally, a growing nationalist movement or public discontent with leadership could further destabilize the government, eroding its control over the military. In this context, Russia's superpower status might gradually fade away, leaving the country unable to compete with other global powers, like the US and China. If Russia were to lose its military superpower status, the ripple effects would not only be felt on the global stage, but also deeply within its borders. The internal power struggle that could follow would likely be fierce. Russia's political elites, long reliant on the military as a cornerstone of their authority, might find themselves in conflict with the very institution they once controlled. Military leadership, frustrated with dwindling resources and a government unable to maintain their status, could begin to assert more influence. There might even be attempts by factions within the military to take control, leading to the rise of competing power groups. Nationalist movements, which have been steadily gaining traction in Russia, could seize this moment of weakness to push their own agendas. For a country that has prided itself on its military heritage, the psychological blow of losing that status would be immense. The population, long accustomed to viewing Russia as a dominant force, might experience a cultural shock, which could fuel discontent and unrest. The question of who to blame would likely cause rifts within Russian society, pitting military leaders against politicians and civilians, leading to widespread instability. The domestic consequences of losing military dominance would be profound. Russia, a nation whose identity is so closely tied to its military prowess, would be thrown into an identity crisis. This could lead to large-scale protests as different groups within the country, ranging from hardline nationalists to more liberal factions, clash over the future direction of the nation. Some might call for a return to Russia's former glory through aggressive means, while others could push for a shift towards economic or technological growth to compensate for the loss of military power. Economically, the impact could be devastating. Russia's military-industrial complex plays a key role in its economy, providing jobs and boosting national pride. A weakened military could lead to the collapse of industries that rely on defense contracts, further straining the economy. Additionally, losing its status as a military superpower would reduce Russia's influence in international trade and diplomacy. Without the leverage of military strength, Russia's bargaining power in global affairs would weaken, which could result in fewer alliances and economic partnerships, deepening the country's isolation. The loss of Russia's military superpower status would send shockwaves across the globe. For decades, Russia has been a counterbalance to Western military powers, particularly the United States. Without Russia's military might, the global balance of power would shift dramatically. Other nations, particularly in Europe and Asia, would need to reevaluate their defense strategies. Eastern European countries, which have long been wary of Russia's influence, might feel a sense of relief, but that relief could quickly turn into concern over who might fill the power vacuum. Superpowers like the US and China would likely adjust their foreign policies in response. The US might shift more focus towards countering China's growing influence, while China might seize the opportunity to increase its presence in regions where Russia once held sway, such as Central Asia and the Arctic. NATO, traditionally aligned against Russia's military threats, might also recalibrate its strategy, possibly directing more attention to emerging powers and global security threats. Russia's closest allies, such as Belarus and Syria, would be forced to reconsider their alliances and adjust to a world where Russia can no longer offer them military support. Could Russia reclaim its superpower status? Or would this be a permanent decline? History shows that empires can sometimes rise again, but often in a different form. For Russia, the path forward could involve a shift in focus. Instead of trying to regain military dominance, Russia might turn towards economic reform, technological innovation, or diplomacy to maintain its influence on the world stage. It could seek to establish itself as a leader in other areas such as energy, cybersecurity, or even space exploration. Lessons from other fallen superpowers, like the British Empire, show that nations can adapt and find new ways to remain relevant without military supremacy. Russia's future could depend on its ability to pivot, rethinking what it means to be powerful in the modern world. However, if internal instability persists and leadership fails to guide the nation through this transition, Russia may face long-term decline, becoming a shadow of its former self. In this hypothetical scenario, the loss of Russia's military superpower status would reshape not only the country itself, but the world at large. Internally, Russia could face an identity crisis, power struggles, and economic turmoil. Its people, long accustomed to the idea of military dominance, might struggle to redefine what it means to be Russian in this new reality. Nationalist movements, political elites, and military leaders could clash, creating a volatile environment that threatens the country's stability. Globally, the loss of one of the world's major military powers would send ripples through international politics, shifting alliances and power dynamics. The United States, China, and NATO would likely re-strategize, while smaller nations might seize the opportunity to step out of Russia's shadow. Russia's future in this scenario hinges on its ability to adapt and find new ways to assert influence without relying on military might. Ultimately, this thought experiment reminds us how deeply intertwined military power is with a nation's identity and global standing. The question isn't just about whether Russia could lose its superpower status, it's about what happens next, both inside Russia and across the world. How would nations and individuals alike adapt to this new global landscape? Now, what do you think? How do you see the world changing if Russia loses its military superpower status? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to hear your take. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating dives into history and geopolitics. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest videos.